Jake Green is finally let out of jail after being locked up for 7 years. 2 years after he got out of prison, he and his brother Billy went to one of the most important casinos in the area to get the money back that crime boss Dorothy Matcha owed them. He doesn't listen to the advice of his guardian Paul and lets Jake join his secret game. Jake is afraid of being closed in, so he doesn't want to take the lift on the way up. But the other bodyguards tell him that they have to climb 20 floors, so he gives in and takes the lift while having a panic attack. Jake loses his first bet, which was on a chip toss with another person at the table. But he does this on purpose. He is giving Matcha a false sense of comfort so that when they make the same bet, he will win. Billy and Jake quickly leave the casino with their bags full of cash. On their way out, Zach stops them and tells them they're in trouble and he can help them before giving Jake his card. This time, Jake decides to take the stairs, but before he can even take one step down, he passes out and falls down as the card that says, "Take the lift," is revealed. While Jake is being taken to the hospital, Matcha talks to Paul about his fears. After 7 years in prison, Jake must want bigger payback, especially after what happened with his sister-in-law, so Matcha tells Paul to hire the best hitman in the business to kill Jake. At the hospital, they told Jake that they couldn't find a reason for the blackout at first look, so he should go home and rest while they waited for the results of the blood test. Billy goes home, and Jake takes the security to protect him, but as soon as they get there, they are all shot. He only gets away because he sees a card on the ground that says, "Pick this up," so he bends down to do just that. He tries to get away in his car, but both he and the driver are shot. Luckily, Zach comes just in time to save him and take him away. Sorter, the hitman, can't figure out how he missed, since he never misses. He thinks that someone must have told Jake about the plan. When he scolds him, he tells Matcha that he missed because he had a bad feeling. In the meantime, Zach takes Jake to meet Avi, his business partner, who has Jake's medical file. The results of the tests are, Jake has a rare disease of the blood that will kill him in 3 days. The guys offer Jake their security in exchange for 2 things that he can't change. He has to give them all their money and do whatever they want, including answering any questions they have. They give him 3 hours to decide, but Jake goes without saying a word because he thinks they are trying to trick him. The results he gets at the hospital are the same as the ones he got at the lab. Jaskier thinks again that Zach and Avi must have paid for the lab, so he goes to see his private doctor, who tells him the same thing. After threatening him with his gun to make sure he wasn't also getting paid, Jake says he has no choice and, after getting money from the bank, goes back to take the men's deal. Avi tells Jake that they are loan sharks as they go for a ride. They will be lending Jake's money. After dropping off the money with their first client, Avi tells Jake he needs to know everything about his relationship with Matcha. The 3 Eddies were 3 really stupid guys who used to work for Matcha. Before a big game, they lost their card player. They knew Jake was a good player, so they called him to fill in. Jake wanted to say no, but they were going to hurt Billy's family, so Jake had to say yes to protect them. During the game, however, Jake and his mother were insulted by the other guys at the table. Jake didn't agree with that, so he started a shooting. The power went out, the money went missing, and the next thing Jake knew, his name had been mentioned and the cops were questioning him. They threatened his cousin and killed his sister-in-law when she tried to protect her daughter so that he wouldn't talk. Jake didn't tell the police that Matcha was in charge of the games, so he went to prison for 7 years. During that time, the Eddies did something to upset Matcha, so he used them as concrete. Zach sends Jake to a hotel to stay after seeing a bunch of clients. Matcha and Paul go to see crime boss Sam Gold, who is known as the ultimate figure that all other crime bosses want to be like. But Gold never has guests, so they meet with Lily Walker, who is his assistant and agrees to help Matcha make a deal for powder. She also tells him that Gold doesn't like attention and doesn't like giving people a second chance. Later, Jake gives Zach and Avi more money. While playing chess with Avi, he is asked about his time in jail. Jake was given 2 choices, 14 years of regular time or 7 years of solitary. He chose the latter. His cell was next to that of a chess master and a conman who had been in jail for a long time and knew everything about each other even though they never talked to each other. During the first 5 years of Jake's term, the 3 of them wrote messages on library books and sent them to each other. This is how Jake learned their secret formula for winning any game in the world. The 2 men were trying to get out of jail and told Jake they would take him with them. However, when they finally went, they just vanished without saying anything and left Jake behind. When he got out of jail 2 years later, he found out that the 2 men had taken all his money and left only a note that said, "You can only get smarter by playing a smarter opponent." Jacker used this to make a lot of money at different casinos by playing against smarter opponents. Jake keeps working as the days go by going to see different clients and giving away his own money. If they don't pay, he's also meant to threaten them, but he can't bring himself to hurt harmless, desperate people. Avi and Zach are chaining a wall to the back of a truck so that when they pull, the wall breaks and they can get the safe on the other side. When Matcha finds out that he's been robbed, he sends Paul to fix the problem no matter what. Paul goes to see their foe, Triad leader Lord John. Lord John agrees to give them the powder so quickly, but he will only do so for a price that is too high. Jake, Zach, Avi, and the rest of their team go to the hotel where the swap is going to take place. They sneak into a room next to the thugs to make a hole in the wall and pump sleeping gas, which puts both Matches and John's men to sleep. Then they steal the money and the powder and make it look like Matcha robbed John and John robbed Matcha. Later, Jake gets a call from Billy, who tells him that he's been asking around and found out that Zach and Avi are so dangerous that not even gold would touch them, so Jake should get out of there. Jake doesn't listen and goes back to work, where a scared client is waiting for him to shoot him. He says no and tries to shoot Avi instead. Just before Avi knocks him out, he realizes the gun is empty. After a few hours, Jake wakes up in the hotel and gets a call from Avi, who tells him that he has made it through his third day and should get a checkup. Jake's sister and Billy come to see him, and Billy gives him a gun just in case. Jake then goes to see his doctor, who tells him that the first diagnosis was wrong and that he is fine. He calls Avi to demand answers, but all Avi says is that he has to wait. Paul has been gathering information in the meantime. Jake's name has come up in connection with all the problems Paul's men have been having, so Matcha has told Paul to kill him. Avi and Zach are waiting for Jake when he gets back to the hotel. They tell him that Matcha's thugs are in the room. Jake runs away, and the men chase after him, but he manages to lose them, especially when one of the thugs trips and accidentally shoots himself. When the body is found, Jake's friends think he did it. Jake goes to Avi and Zach's office, where they admit they've always known Jake didn't tell them the whole truth about his old deal with the Eddies. These three idiots were waiting for Jake to get out of prison so they could kill him because of what he did that got them fired by Matcha. To save his life, he made a deal with the Eddies. He would give them 3% of any money they lent him every month. Only one Eddie agreed the first time. But when they saw that he kept his deal, they all wanted to join, this time for a 4% cut. In reality, Jake paid each Eddie with the money from another Eddie, so he wasn't missing anything. They ran out of money to give away, so they borrowed from Matcha, who quickly became interested in the Eddie's strange moneymaker man. After gambling with the formula and getting rich, Jake decided to take a trip with his brother and sister at that time. While they were gone, Matcha killed the Eddies because they hadn't paid him back. Matcha is having dinner at a nice restaurant when one of his goons comes to tell him that Jake has escaped. Sorter sees that John's lover is trying to be a waitress, so he shoots her before leaving the restaurant to go after her car. But his aim is still off, so he only hurt her and didn't kill her. Before she died, the woman shot off Matcha's finger in the middle of the chaos. Then, Sorter is sent to where Lord John and his men hide to kill them. Back to Jake, he is still talking to Zach and Avi while they play golf on a roof. They tell him that nobody ever gets to see gold because he doesn't exist. Gold is just a symbol of ego and greed, and he only has power over those who invest in him. So Jake needs to change the rules about what he lets control him. Jake then takes the rest of his money out of the bank and gives it all to charity before going into Matcha's room. Jake tells Matcha he's sorry for tricking him out of his money, accepts him as the better crime lord, and tells him he's made a gift in his name before leaving. This is all while he's fighting with the sounds in his head that are his ego. Jake takes the lift to face his fears, but the lift gets stuck on the 13th floor. While trying to stop a panic attack, he has a talk in his head in which he rejects his ego, finally walking out of the game as a free man. Once the lift starts working again, Jake goes to the ground floor and finds Matcha waiting for him with a gun. Matcha has been driven crazy by his own ego, but Jake is happy with himself and just goes past him, which drives Matcha crazy because he doesn't understand why someone wouldn't be afraid of him. He starts crying when he realizes how badly he's been treated. The next morning, Paul brings Matcha all the local newspapers so he can see his name all over them. Jake hadn't been lying when he said he made a gift in Matcha's name, and now everyone thinks the casino owner cares about the community. Matcha is happy to take the credit, but he doesn't have long to be happy. Paul also tells Jake that he has the powder and that he has been playing them the whole time. Paul, Sorter, and the rest of Matcha's goons go to Billy's house. When Billy finds out that one of his security has turned him, he hides his daughter in a cupboard. Once they find him, they start hurting him and questioning him, even though he says he doesn't know where Jake and the powder are. Paul's ways of torture are getting worse and worse, and Sorter starts to feel uneasy, especially when they make the girl come out of the closet after hearing her cry. Sorter gives up his ego because he doesn't want to hurt a child. He starts killing his other goons in an orderly and effective way, but he makes a mistake at the end and dies himself. In the meantime, Lily goes to see Matcha. She gives him a wreath that Gold sent because he didn't like seeing Matcha's name all over the press. Gold doesn't like being in the spotlight. Lily also tells him that Matcha's time is up and that he won't get another chance, which makes him worry again. Avi and Zach take Jake and the powder to Matcha's casino, where Avi finally beats Jake at chess while telling Jake the last few details of the story. He and Zach were in the cell next to Jake's, and they always wanted to take him with them, but Jake wasn't ready to accept the truth, which suggests that they were just things in Jake's head. He doesn't have time to deal with this, though, because at that moment, soldiers from the casino come to take him to see Matcha, who is with the girl. Jake tells his cousin that everything will be fine after he drops the bags of powder on the floor. This makes Matcha mad because Jake is still not scared even though he is pointing his gun at the child. Matcha's ego voices decide that Jake can't hurt a dead man because he made him feel bad, so he puts the gun to his head and shoots. Time.